I spent Samiljeol in Korea this year and I knew I didn't want it to be just another day because this isn't just a public holiday, it marks the March 1st movement when Koreans protested for independence during the Japanese colonial rule. It's one of those days where history feels very present, and as someone who genuinely loves history, I felt a responsibility to engage with it properly, not just intellectually but emotionally too. I think when you care about history, there's always this question of how do you show up in spaces like this respectfully? Because it's not your story, but you're still witnessing it, and I didn't want to just visit places. I wanted to understand what they represent, even if that understanding is incomplete. I think it's important to understand what this day actually represents. In 1919, during the Japanese colonial rule, Koreans across the country came together in a series of protests calling for independence. And what stands out to me is how widespread it was. It wasn't just one city or one group of people. Students, activists, ordinary citizens, people from different backgrounds all participated. There's something powerful about that kind of collective action. Not just the scale of it, but the intention behind it. It was organized, it was public, it was all rooted in clear belief that Korea should be independent. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge what happened next. The protests were met with force. Many people were arrested, injured, and killed. And I think that part is essential to remember, because it reminds you that this wasn't just symbolic. There were real consequences for the people involved. So I went to two places in Seoul, Hyochang Park and the Kim-kyu Museum and Library. Both are deeply connected to Korea's independence movement, and both made me more aware of what I was experiencing. Hyochang Park is quiet, not empty, but calm in a very intentional way. It's the resting place of several independence activists, and you can feel that weight the moment you walk in. There's a kind of unspoken understanding in the space. People aren't loud, they're not rushing, and I find myself naturally adjusting to that, walking slower, thinking more carefully, which sounds simple, but it actually changed how I experienced everything. There's also something about being in a place like that where you become very aware of your presence. Not in an anxious way, but in a reflective one. Like, what does it mean for me to be here right now? And I think that question is important because remembrance isn't passive, it's something you actively participate in, even as a visitor. Then I went to the Kim-kyu Museum and Library, which focuses on Kim-kyu, one of the key leaders in Korea's independence movement. And what stood out to me wasn't just the scale of what he did, but how clearly the museum shows him as a person. His thoughts, his writing, his decisions. It's easy to think of historical figures as almost symbolic, but being there reminds you that they were real people navigating impossible situations, and that makes everything feel more immediate. Something I kept thinking about was how independence movements are often simplified when we learn about them, but when you actually engage with them more closely, they're complex, difficult, and full of uncertainty. There isn't just one single narrative. There are many perspectives, many sacrifices, and sitting with that complexity felt important, not trying to reduce it into something easy to understand. It also made me reflect on distance, what it means to learn about a country's history when it is on your own, and how to do that with care. Because there's a difference between observing history and respecting the people connected to it. I don't think a single visit can capture the meaning of a day like this, but I do think it can change how you see it, even slightly. And maybe that's enough to leave with a deeper awareness and a willingness to keep learning.